You're not watching this video by accident. You've probably seen 1,000 videos about Steve Jobs, his quotes, his black turtlenecks, his presentations, but this one is different. Because by the time you reach the end of this video, you'll understand why the world you live in today exists because of one man's impossible vision. And maybe you'll start to see your own life, your own potential, differently too. So don't skip. Don't scroll. Because in the next few minutes, you're going to hear the untold truth about how one man changed the world forever, not with luck, but with obsession. Steve Jobs didn't want to make computers. He wanted to make tools that felt human. Machines that weren't cold, lifeless boxes, but extensions of our hearts, our minds, our creativity. He used to say, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." And he was one of them, maybe the craziest of them all. But that belief didn't come from comfort. It came from rejection. From being adopted, dropped out of college, and told he'd never make it. He slept on floors, collected Coke bottles for food money, and walked miles just to get one free meal a week. And yet, he never stopped believing that everything happening to him was part of a bigger story. He once said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward." And looking back now, you can see how every painful dot led to the creation of something that would reshape humanity. It all began in a tiny garage in 1976. 2 guys, a dream, and a handful of circuits. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak didn't just build a computer. They built a revolution. Apple wasn't born out of money. It was born out of rebellion. Jobs wanted to break the rules, to challenge IBM, to show the world that technology could be beautiful, simple, and personal. While everyone else saw machines, he saw art. He saw the future sitting on a wooden desk, glowing softly, whispering, "Think different." When the first Macintosh launched in 1984, it didn't just compute, it spoke. "Hello," the screen said. And that moment changed everything. The world suddenly realized that technology didn't have to be cold. It could smile. It could connect. It could inspire. That was the first time a computer felt like a friend. But life has a cruel way of testing visionaries. Just 1 year later, Steve Jobs was forced out of his own company, fired from Apple. Imagine building something from nothing, then being told you no longer belong there. Most people would have broken. Steve didn't. He said, "It was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it." He went silent, disappeared from the spotlight, but behind the curtain, he was rebuilding himself. He started Next, a company so ahead of its time that it nearly bankrupted him. He bought a tiny animation studio called Pixar and turned it into the birthplace of Toy Story, the world's first full-length computer-animated film. Once again, he wasn't just making products, he was changing entire industries. And fate, or maybe destiny, had one more twist. In 1997, Apple called him back. The company was dying. The stock was crashing. The products were forgettable. But when Steve walked back into that building, it was as if the future had walked in with him. He cut down everything unnecessary, dozens of projects gone overnight. He told his team, "Focus means saying no." And out of that ruthless simplicity came the comeback of a lifetime. First came the iMac, bold, colorful, and alive. Then the iPod, 1,000 songs in your pocket. Then the iPhone, a product so revolutionary that within minutes of its reveal, the entire world knew something historic had happened. He didn't just introduce a phone. He reinvented what it meant to live in the digital age. You no longer carried a device. You carried a piece of the future. But what made Jobs truly different wasn't just what he built. It was how he made people feel. Every Apple launch was theater. Every slide, every pause, every "one more thing" was a masterclass in storytelling. He made technology emotional. He made it human. When you saw him unveil a new product, you didn't feel like you were watching a businessman. You felt like you were witnessing a magician pulling the future out of thin air. And yet, behind that genius, there was chaos. He was demanding, perfectionist, often impossible to work with. He pushed people to the breaking point. But here's the paradox. Those same people, years later, said they'd do it all again. Because once you worked with Steve Jobs, you could never go back to being ordinary. He made you see the world not as it is, but as it could be. Even near the end, when his body was failing, his mind never stopped. He worked on the iPhone 4, the iPad 2, the Apple Campus, knowing full well he might never see them finished. He wasn't chasing profit. He was chasing perfection. And when he finally passed away in 2011, it felt like time itself paused. Millions of people cried, not for a CEO, but for a man who had become a symbol of what human creativity could achieve. But here's the part people often miss. Steve Jobs didn't just change the world with inventions. He changed it with intention. He taught us that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. That design is about empathy. That great work isn't about following the crowd. It's about having the courage to follow your vision, even when everyone else doubts you. He believed technology should serve the heart, not replace it. That's why when you use an iPhone, when you open your Mac, when you listen to music through AirPods, you're not just touching a piece of metal and glass. You're touching an idea born from someone who dared to dream differently. So how did Steve Jobs change the world forever? He made the future personal. He merged art and engineering, soul and silicon, creativity and code. He didn't just build Apple. He built a new relationship between humans and technology. And the proof is right there in your hand, in your pocket, in your daily life. That's his legacy, invisible yet everywhere. Because the truth is, Steve Jobs never wanted to be remembered as a businessman. He wanted to be remembered as a creator. Someone who showed that even one person, with relentless belief, can bend reality and leave a mark that time itself cannot erase. And if you're watching this now, maybe that's the message you were meant to hear. Maybe this isn't just a story about Steve Jobs. Maybe it's a reminder that the power to change the world doesn't belong to geniuses or billionaires. It belongs to anyone brave enough to think differently. If this story touched something inside you, if it made you look at your own ideas and wonder what if, then don't stop here. Subscribe now, because the next video dives even deeper into the untold stories of those who dared to reshape the world, one impossible idea at a time. Because maybe, just maybe, the next person to change the world is you.